I thought that he loved me more than he loved these other girls or this other girl, and our relationship wouldn't go down the path of abuse, physical violence, and I was wrong. So that was like a major red flag that I saw in the relationship prior to the physical abuse that I ignored or I downplayed. This is Shayla Renee, and welcome to another episode of Take Back Your Life Conversations with Shay. I am so super excited to announce the upcoming release of my new book, He Almost Stole My Life, the Take Back Your Life edition. I wanted to talk about certain subjects that I hit in the book. And this week, I want to talk about recognizing the signs of a toxic person. And not only recognizing those signs, but using those red flags to avoid entering into a relationship with them. When I think about red flags, I am drawn to the unfortunate event of the Titanic. And I am not talking about the movie version where Ruth wouldn't let Jack on the headboard at the end and he ended up drowning. Because you know as well as I do that there was enough room on that headboard for both of them to float. But I actually want to talk about all of the red flags with the actual tragedy of the Titanic and the countless number of lives lost. And a tragedy that probably could have been avoided had the crew yielded to the warning signs that would eventually lead to the sinking of the ship. I find it very relatable when we're talking about red flags and the situation of the Titanic and talking about red flags that we can see from um, people in our lives or people that want to enter our lives or people that we are interested in. And if you go back, if I did a little bit of research on the actual sailing of the Titanic, and not only did their pride get in the way of saving, thousands of people, but they're ignoring certain warning signs um, ultimately led to the sinking of the ship. And one of the warning signs was from other ships in the area. Another ship in the area actually stopped sailing altogether just because of the icebergs and the fog in the area, and the sea was so still that the lookouts weren't able to see the icebergs that were underneath the waterline. The crew on the Titanic, unfortunately, thought that their ship was so well made that they could continue sailing at the speed that they were sailing. And they were so prideful that they didn't do a lot of the emergency training. They didn't do any emergency training drills. They didn't have enough lifeboats on the ship. I read that when they finally saw the icebergs, this is after they were warned of the icebergs, and they continued to travel at a very fast speed. After they saw the iceberg, they were instructed to speed up and to make a hard turn left or right. I don't know. I'm not a sailor, so I don't know what starboard means. But they sped up and they tried to turn to avoid hitting the iceberg head on. And that eventually caused more damage than it probably would have caused had they just stopped in their track. If we bring that back to our personal lives, like there are many red flags that we may see in other individuals that we may be interested in. In my book, that there's a chapter in my book that's titled "Signs." What signs? And I talk a little bit about the many red flags that I saw in my relationship with um, the person named Mister in my book, who happens to be an ex. Like, for instance, him saying that he had hit other females. He was abusive to other females he was in relationships with in the past. And it was because he didn't respect the person. And basically, as long as I didn't do anything or act any type of way that will cause disrespect or cause him to not respect me, I wouldn't have to worry about that. So I took him by his word, and I thought that he loved me more than he loved these other girls or this other girl, and our relationship wouldn't go down the path of abuse, physical violence, and I was wrong. So that was like a major red flag that I saw in the relationship prior to the physical abuse that I ignored or I downplayed. And this is part of the reason why I always say not to ask God for something that you're not prepared for the answer to. And I remember distinctly. I remember I was riding in my car down the street, and I came to a fork in the road. And I remember, I think that me and Mister were arguing about, I don't know, something. I think I found something on his social media because I had his passwords, and you know how that goes. And I remember, asking God, praying to God, crying out to God, God, Lord, please tell me if this person is not for me. Please show me that he's not the one, because at the time I thought he was the one. If you know a little bit about my story, you know that um, I was very insecure in this relationship. I didn't value my own life. I talk about you valuing life, your life, and you understanding who you are and your true identity. I talk about that often because it's so important before before we enter into any relationship. We need to have value over our own lives so we don't get lost in someone else's life. And when I entered into this relationship, I didn't value my own life. I didn't begin to value my own life until the end of the relationship, to understand what my life was worth and what that really meant. So I'm in too deep in this relationship already. I valued him more than I valued myself. I valued him more than I probably valued God, to be honest. So this is 2 years into my relationship with Mr. I asked God for a sign. A week or two later, I find out that in a very embarrassing and I found out that he was married, and he wasn't married to me. So technically I was the other woman. When I say to you, like, recognize these signs, recognize red flags, and run the opposite direction, or at least recognize these signs and stop. This is why I say that, because not only did I ignore red flags that he displayed himself, I ignored a major red flag that God showed me. God in his faithfulness answered my prayer. He just didn't answer it the way that I wanted him to. And I still continue full speed ahead in this relationship with this person. And I missed out of a lot of time that I could have spent with my mom when she was deathly ill. to be in this relationship with someone that God clearly told me that I shouldn't be in because I didn't yield to the red flags. So, my plea to you is when you see the warning signs, when you see the red flags, and they could be, small things. It could be, you know, your partner doesn't like you talking on the phone um, for extended periods of time, or your partner is trying to separate you or isolate you from your family and friends, or your partner doesn't believe in you and doesn't uplift you like that. Those are red signs. Those are red flags that you need to like take a moment and pause and eventually uh, navigate around that relationship, and don't do what I did, and don't do what the crew of the Titanic did, which was allow your pride to get in the way of saving yourself from tragedy. You got to save yourself. And I did not lose my life in this relationship, but I almost lost my life in this relationship. I did lose myself in this relationship. I had no idea who I was outside of being this person's girlfriend, technically other woman. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to fall so deeply into something that it's almost impossible for you to escape from. So that's what I have for you today. Please be sure to like, comment, and share. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I drop a new video.